Good evening. This side, Rahul Magan here. You know that I love banks, the accounting of banks, the books of banks, the annual reports of international banks, and I always express my thanks to international banks that they are sharing high quality research in public. It's really unfortunate that this high quality research is not being appreciated by everyone, but I always appreciate that. The kind of research these banks are putting in public, then let me tell you, finding this research, if you read carefully, is really not only an interesting exercise, but also highly qualitative in nature. Keeping this in mind, today I would be raising a highly sensitive issue, and that sensitive issue pertains to Basel III. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know whether you understand Basel III or not, or what is your understanding on Basel III, but let me tell you that Basel III is having lot of high quality disclosures. There is hardly any doubt. The only issue where me and Basel III are having difference of opinion is RWA, which is nothing but risk weighted asset. I strongly feel that at the place of RWA, Basel III should have RWA plus RWF, which is net of gross of both, which in our technical parlance is known as risk weighted liabilities and risk weighted assets. Together we title this as immunization. Today's video pertains to the same topic, but this is highly technical video, and I do not expect anyone except who understand this industry, who works in a bank, they able to cite what I am saying. We all understand that when it comes to top banks, they work across the globe. So they are not restricted to India, US, they work across the globe. Except few countries where practically business is not possible, they work in all global financial centers. They work in Singapore, India, Dubai, Hong Kong, Bahrain, United Kingdom, across European Union, 31 nations, not to mention United States, Latin America, everywhere. That is why I always raised a point that for an international bank, there cannot be a one treasury function, because this is fairly impossible for one person or a set of person to handle the complete treasury operation of an international bank. It is fairly impossible. Henceforth, I strongly believe that international banks should have multiple treasury functions, which, by the way, they are holding. But having said that, there is a thing called Pillar 3 reporting. Basel 3, technically speaking, is divided into three parts: Pillar 1, Pillar 2, and Pillar 3. My favorite is definitely the Pillar 3, because Pillar 3 is quantitative in nature, which means it is completely mathematical in nature. It is completely, it is our disclosure, which includes lot of citations, definitions, formulas, completely quantitative in nature. And ladies and gentlemen, there is a concept called CET1 ratio, which is Common Equity Tier Ratio 1. CET1 ratio, Common Equity Tier Ratio 1. In the world of banking, CET1 ratio is considered as a healthy benchmark for any bank. So suppose the regulator of any country is having CET1 ratio as 9%, assuming, and the relevant bank is having CET1 ratio as 15%, it means they are healthy. But please note that not all the times disclosures are good, because history is witness that effective 2008, there are many issues as far as the disclosures are concerned. But anyways, we are keeping this topic aside. Technically speaking, I went to Basel 3, the one of the documents which I cited of BIS. BIS means Bank for International Settlement. And let me study this for you. Common equity tier 1 capital is the highest quality of regulatory capital as it absorbs losses immediately when they occur. Additional tier 1, which is also known as AT1, also provides loss absorption on a going concern basis. I hope you would have heard AT1 bonds not only in India and worldwide. In fact, during Yes Bank crisis also, AT1 bonds was in picture. Although AT1 bonds instruments do not meet all criteria of CET1. For example, some debt instruments such as perpetual contingent capital instrument, which is called CCI, perpetual contingent convertible capital instrument, may be included in AT1 but not included in CET1. I have already raised this issue many times, so you can refer our earlier videos. Tier 2 capital is a going concern capital. That is, when a bank fails, Tier 2 instrument must absorb losses before depositors and general creditors do. The criteria for the Tier 2 are less strict than for AT1, allowing instrument with a majority date to be eligible Tier 2, while only perpetual instruments are eligible for AT1, which is known as additional Tier 1. Technically speaking, the total capital of a bank is CET1 and Tier 2 capital. Simplistically speaking, Tier 1 capital or Tier 2 capital. But today the issue is the formula, on which I am having a little interpretation issue. The formula, which I'm again taking from the international sources, is CET1 ratio is computing using CET1 capital divided by total risk weighted asset, which is called RWA. Now, my submission is, when we are taking risk weighted asset, why are we not taking risk weighted liabilities also? So all those who do not understand the risk-weighted asset, let me explain what is risk-weighted asset in a very simple language. Risk-weighted asset are those assets which are subject to revaluation, probably translation, or maybe both. So let me give you a very simplistic example. Any big bank whose principal currency is dollar and they are holding the deposits in GB. There are many books which are also citing off-balance sheet exposure as a risk-weighted asset. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, off-balance sheet exposure is one of the amongst most interesting topics in the world of finance. Because technically speaking, off-balance sheet exposure is divided into 4 parts, which is based on duration and the amount. Sometimes you know the duration, not know the amount. Sometimes you know the duration and amount both. Sometimes you do not know both. Sometimes you do not know duration and you know the amount. Henceforth, off-balance sheet exposure play a very, very important role in the books of bank. There are certain interpretation issues which we are having, and the interpretation issue pertains to the valuation of off-balance sheet exposure. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a highly disputed topic, and I would be covering this topic later. But anyways, coming to the point. CET1 capital is CET1 ratio is about Tier 1 ratio, in short, is about CET1 capital divided by the RWA. My submission is, if a bank who is based out in US having principal currency as dollar, but they are having GBP deposits because of their customer or maybe market making, there could be n number of factors. So common sense, the revaluation is there. Even if you are hedging this, that doesn't mean the impact of revaluation is zero. Like I said, that it is a very complicated topic. The impact of revaluation cannot be zero. In this eventuality, to make the impact of revaluation as zero or nearest to zero, you supposed to be take the fair value hedging program. That fair value hedging program sometimes taken using deliverables, sometimes taking non-deliverable, and so on and so forth. Now, my simple submission is, suppose this bank, who is a dollar-denominated bank having a GBP deposit, which means it's a liability. What would if this bank, which is the own money of the bank, they deposited this in the interbank market with another bank? Now, this is their asset. It is a liability of this bank, and it's an asset of this bank and the liability of the other bank. And suppose this currency is euro, which means the bank functional currency is dollar, but I funded euro, which means again there is a revaluation. Revaluation cannot be zero. To make zero or nearest zero, I need to take the fair value hedging program. That is up to the management or the ALCO committee. They need to take the fair value hedging program. But ladies and gentlemen, the very important thing which we should be citing is that when you are calculating Tier 1, then the Tier 1 capital is having one big component, which is called FX reversals. FX, so just take hypothetically, just September 2023 went by. So September 2023, your Tier 1 capital was 15%. And June, it was 12%. So from 12% to 15%, there is a jump of 3%. Why there is a jump of 3%? One of the component is the FX reversals. FX reversal is a very big word, very big word. It includes a hedge book also, it includes a prop book also. There are many things which it includes. So, but I am taking everything aside because I am solely focused on RWA and RWL. But let me repeat that this is not the only factor in FX reversal. It's a big word. In this eventuality, let's assume that the total, the asset is 100 million euro, while the liabilities, the deposit, is just 10 million GBP. It means there is a substantial impact of euro revaluation as compared to GBP. Substantial impact. And God forbid, due to any market conditions, the euro is falling while GBP is intact, which means there is a big revaluation impact in euro, while there is so revaluation impact in GBP, which means netting off is fairly impossible. Netting off is fairly impossible. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what to do? And that's my point. If I am calculating Tier 1 capital, and one of the issues, the reasons why Tier 1 moves is the FX reversal. My point is, whether I would be allowed to take RWA plus RWL, risk-weighted asset plus risk-weighted liabilities on a gross basis, or am I allowed to take RWA minus RWL on the net basis? That's more important thing. And if I'm allowed the formula which is approved, which is only RW8, then is this FX reversal is a catalyst GL? GL means general ledger because all the top banks have their respective ERPs, which is called enterprise resource planning. When you do FX transaction, there is a catalyst which comes into the picture, and that catalyst is nothing but known as the general ledger. All the plus, minus, and all these things will enter into that catalyst. This catalyst at the end of the day will reach to the debit side of the PNL or probably the credit side of the PNL. That completely depends on the moment. Sometimes it is plus, sometimes it is minus, sometimes a fair value hedging program which the banks are citing. These fair value hedging program are based on the GL. Sometimes these fair value hedging programs are based on the notional amount. So this is a very high profile topic, not an easy topic to understand. But having said that, one important thing is that which approach is better. Approach number one, RWA, only RWA, risk weighted asset. Approach number two, RWL, risk weighted liabilities. Approach number three, gross of RWL plus RWA plus RWL. Number four, net RWA minus RWL. And number five, and most complicated of all of them, total notional amount which we routed through the catalyst GL, general ledger, that should be added in the denominator. The denominator could be 1, 2, 3, 4, either of that. This is something which I'm always worried that why we stick to RWA. That's more important. Because now the currency impact is there because of volatility. That's my simple suggestion.